The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. Summary. The book in 3 sentences. Success encompasses a balance of personal and professional effectiveness. Before you can adopt the 7 habits, you need to change your perception and interpretation of how the world works. See, paradigm shift. Between what happens to you and your response to it is your freedom to choose that response. The 5 big ideas. Proactive people work on the things they can do something about. Management is doing things right, leadership is doing the right things. A paradigm is a way to see the world. We see the world, not as it is, but as we are conditioned to see it. To make relatively minor changes in your life, focus on your attitudes and behaviors. To make significant, quantum change, work on your basic paradigms. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Be proactive. Begin with the end in mind. Put first things first. Think win/win. Seek first to understand, then be understood. Synergize. Sharpen the saw. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People Summary. Leadership is communicating others' worth and potential so clearly that they are inspired to see it in themselves. The character ethic teaches that there are basic principles of effective living and that people can only experience true success and enduring happiness as they learn and integrate these principles into their basic character. To focus on technique is like cramming your way through school. What you are shout so loudly in my ears I cannot hear what you say. Thomas Edison. We have many maps in our heads and each can be divided into 2 main categories, maps of the way things are, or realities, and maps of the way things should be, or values. We interpret everything we experience through these mental maps. We seldom question their accuracy, we're usually even unaware that we have them. We simply assume that the way we see things is the way they really are or the way they should be. To try to change outward attitudes and behaviors do very little good in the long run if we fail to examine the basic paradigms from which those attitudes and behaviors flow. We see the world, not as it is, but as we are, or as we are conditioned to see it. Our paradigms, correct or incorrect, are the sources of our attitudes and behaviors, and ultimately our relationships with others. If we want to make relatively minor changes in our lives, we can perhaps appropriately focus on our attitudes and behaviors. But if we want to make significant, quantum change, we need to work on our basic paradigms. Paradigms are inseparable from character. Being is seeing in the human dimension. And what we see is highly interrelated to what we are. Paradigms are powerful because they create the lens through which we see the world. The power of a paradigm shift is the essential power of quantum change, whether that shift is an instantaneous or a slow and deliberate process. On practices versus principles, practices are situationally specific. Principles are deep, fundamental truths that have universal application. Principles are the territory. Values are maps. When we value correct principles, we have the truth, a knowledge of things as they are. Admission of ignorance is often the first step in our education. The way we see the problem is the problem. The significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. Albert Einstein. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Aristotle. Sow a thought, reap an action, sow an action, reap a habit, sow a habit, reap a character, sow a character, reap a destiny. Stephen defines a habit as the intersection of knowledge, skill, and desire. Knowledge is the theoretical paradigm, the what to do and the why. Skill is the how to do. And desire is the motivation, the want to do. To make something a habit in our lives, Stephen explains, we need to have all 3. Private victories precede public victories. True effectiveness is a function of 2 things, what is produced, the golden eggs, and the producing asset or capacity to produce, the goose. Effectiveness lies in the balance, what Stephen calls the P/PC balance. P stands for production of desired results, the golden eggs. PC stands for production capability, the ability or asset that produces the golden eggs. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by conscious endeavor. Henry David Thoreau. We are not our feelings. We are not our moods. We are not even our thoughts. The very fact that we can think about these things separates us from them and from the animal world. There are three social maps, three theories of determinism widely accepted, independently or in combination, to explain the nature of man. Genetic determinism. This basically says your grandparents did it to you. That's why you have such a temper. Psychic determinism. This basically says your parents did it to you. Environmental determinism. This basically says your boss is doing it to you, or your spouse, or that bratty teenager, or your economic situation, or national policies. Someone or something in your environment is responsible for your situation. Between what happens to you, or the stimulus and your response to it is your freedom or power to choose that response. Between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. Proactive people can carry their own weather with them. Whether it rains or shines makes no difference to them. They are value-driven, and if their value is to produce good quality work, it isn't a function of whether the weather is conducive to it or not. The ability to subordinate an impulse to a value is the essence of the proactive person. Reactive people are driven by feelings, by circumstances, by conditions, by their environment. Proactive people are driven by values, carefully thought about, selected and internalized values. Proactive people are still influenced by external stimuli, whether physical, social, or psychological. But their response to the stimuli, conscious or unconscious, is a value-based choice or response. It's not what happens to us, but our response to what happens to us that hurts us. Viktor Frankl suggests that there are three central values in life. The experiential, or that which happens to us. The creative, or that which we bring into existence. The attitudinal, or our response in difficult circumstances such as terminal illness. What matters most is how we respond to what we experience in life. Proactive people focus their efforts in the circle of influence. They work on the things they can do something about. The nature of their energy is positive, enlarging and magnifying, causing their circle of influence to increase. The problems we face fall in one of three areas. Direct control. Problems involving our own behavior. Indirect control. Problems involving other people's behavior. No control. Problems we can do nothing about, such as our past or situational realities. Begin with the end in mind is based on the principle that all things are created twice. There's a mental or first creation, and a physical or second creation, to all things. Management is doing things right, leadership is doing the right things. Management is efficiency in climbing the ladder of success, leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. The two additional unique human endowments that enable us to expand our proactivity and to exercise personal leadership in our lives are imagination and conscience. Writing or reviewing a mission statement changes you because it forces you to think through your priorities deeply, carefully, and to align your behavior with your beliefs. As you do, other people begin to sense that you're not being driven by everything that happens to you. You have a sense of mission about what you're trying to do and you are excited about. A good affirmation has 5 basic ingredients. It's personal. It's positive. It's present tense. It's visual. It's emotional. An example of an affirmation: it is deeply satisfying, emotional, that I, personal, respond, present tense, with wisdom, love, firmness, and self-control, positive, when my children misbehave. The challenge is not to manage time, but to manage ourselves. You simply can't think efficiency with people. You think effectiveness with people and efficiency with things. Peace of mind comes when your life is in harmony with true principles and values and in no other way. Recommended listening. If you like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, you may also enjoy the following books. Awaken the Giant Within by Anthony Robbins. Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe to the channel to receive the latest notifications. See you soon.